Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Podcast Strikes Back. My name is George and you're listening to our full spoiler review of Captain Marvel with the boys Connor.
Hello.
And Benny.
Hi there.
Guys, if you haven't checked it out, go check out our non-spoiler review. And if you haven't seen this film, get the hell out of here because there's some really, really cool stuff that we don't want to ruin. You got to go see it in the cinema. Let's get into the spoilers. God, there's so much in here.
So can we talk about, for more than anything, just the kind of the main plot mystery?
I think it's a good place to start.
And how we thought that played out. Because we've all talked about, in the non-spoiler review, how much we love the way that they built up that mystery. And one of the things that I really loved about how they built that up, which, again, we couldn't really talk about in the non-spoiler, was that they kept changing the memories in kind of subtle yet significant ways. I mean, the just different placements of people or remembering things slightly differently. The crash scene seems to be, there's different inferences about how it happened, why it happened, who was where, all that kind of stuff. So that when the final reveal happens, it doesn't really resemble the original memory at all.
Yeah, I could see some people being like, that's a cheat, you know, because you see the stuff early on that hints at things being a certain way that then the movie pulls the rug out and is like, no, it's actually the complete opposite. It's like, but you already showed me something different. I didn't have a problem with it at all. I really enjoyed it, but I can totally see people being like, no, I already saw a Skrull do that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But that being said, I liked it. I like when you see her recollection of, you know, this crash she barely remembers and she sees her own blue blood as she would, thinking that she's a Kree. So I think like that.
I think one of the important things to mention with what you said is that while they did do that, they also changed it relatively early on. They showed that the memory was infallible early on. So, I mean...
But you're always second guessing it. There was one point in this where she's tied up and her memories are getting poked around in. And I think before you realize that, I wasn't sure whether the plot was going to be centered around her as a pilot or her. Are we seeing, like, are we in space? Is this the present? Is this the past? I was sort of really trying to get my bearings about what part or what timeline were we actually in. And I found that, like, I did that for me, that setup made it absolutely fine to say these memories could be different.
Exactly.
That mechanism made it all A-okay.
Well, exactly. And that's a scene I'd like to talk about more because that was an awesome scene of them scrubbing through her memories and like influencing them in little ways. It was just really well executed.
Did you figure out the mechanic of it?
What do you mean?
So the way that they were influencing, or the reason that they were influencing it was basically, from what I could gather, is that they were manipulating the memory so that she would remember specific details.
It's Inception. They were trying to get information out of her by running through her memories,
and what was Extraction, actually.
Okay.
Chris Nolan presents Extraction.
But it was kind of... when they kept making the person come and repeat the memory.
Yes.
You know, that was really cool. And I was trying to figure out the mechanics. That was kind of when you first realize that they were scrubbing through the memory and then you realize that they're starting to manipulate and you're trying to figure out what the mechanics are.
Trying to get her to focus on different elements.
Yeah. That was a really cool aspect. Yeah.
And the voiceover, Ben Mendelsohn's voiceover, I think the sound design, don't quote me on this, but I think it started out a little more muffled and it gradually got more and more.
Sound design or?
Sound mixing. Definitely sound design. And then it became more crystal clear and then you realize, oh shit, they're fucking with their memories.
Just this great omnipresent Aussie in the sky.
Yeah.
Influencing events.
I wouldn't be bothered by that. And you know, another thing about this whole... sorry, do you want to keep going with the memory?
No, go.
Because what I really loved about this that blew me away was you revisit it many times throughout the film is the plane going down and her getting up out of the ashes and the sand getting thrown up. And I thought the way they was presented at the beginning, this was an alien planet. And then at the end, you realize it's Earth. And I fucking loved that, man. Just that small little detail, that for me was so satisfying. I thought that was really, really well done. because it sort of set it up like it's this cosmic adventure, and she's in a crazy plane, and there's Skrull, and it's like, oh shit, they're on Earth. Wow, okay, where is this going? I found that really, really captivating.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? And it kind of speaks to the whole, like, there's some legitimate psychology around it. Like, your brain puts things together however they could most make sense. So if your brain needs to kind of rearrange, the events. So in the first memory, I think her getting blasted by when she absorbs the energy, that's actually what you first see in that original memory to kind of make it look like an alien planet, or like some kind of explosion in the middle of war.
Yes.
And then, she's lying there while her mentor is up, and then, it just makes sense in her brain. Whereas I just love how they kept changing small little details until you got to the full picture.
Yeah, her memories were portrayed completely subjectively as memories are, which was cool. It was just one example of them not dumbing this stuff down for the audience, I thought. Another one being Annette Bening's characters, Marvel, Shock, and the Supreme Intelligence. Yeah. They're I don't know. I don't think they really beat you over the head later on in the movie, especially when she was just being the Central Intelligence or the Supreme Intelligence. The antagonist version. Like, I could see some people, I don't know, like kids in the audience maybe just being like, I'm not really following who's who or what's going on here.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
But they kind of explained it at the beginning. And this is one thing that a nitpick that I'll place on this right away is that this movie is not good at exposition. There's a couple of lines where, like, Jude Law even says, "You should know this," as if like to say, I can't believe we have to.
As you know.
Yeah, like, I can't believe I have to explain this thing that everyone here knows, but the audience doesn't, so we might as well say it again. Like,
I'm pretty sure you audibly tutted at that moment, so that was the only one that bothered me.
Probably did.
you definitely did.
Because that's just egregious. And they did it a couple of times with things that I just feel like there's better ways to do that.
I feel like a lot of people go for exposition as like a nitpick. And it's like, if there's any form of exposition, people are like, oh, it's exposition. It's like, you got to sometimes set things up, especially in science fiction. And yes, maybe it's not always the most elegant, but just get on with it, And I don't think this one, if it's at length, if the exposition is at length and it's hammering you over the head, that's when it becomes like, okay, I get it. I get it, but in that, I'm just like,
I've seen
it's not a big
good
deal.
exposition. Like, and not even like I've seen good, world building and ways to convey information to the audience. And the more I see it done well, the more I am unaccepting that these one-liner exposition pieces are necessary, and they're just more a result of, I was going to say lazy writing, but I don't necessarily think that that's a fair accusation. Writing without time, I suppose, or time constraints. Like, they didn't have time to think of a good way to do it, so they just chucked it in there like that.
See, I would say it was done pretty well in this movie, because with the exception of that very kind of opening scene, which does have the, as you already know type of exposition, everything else in this movie I found to be information being provided to someone who didn't already know it. Because as a mystery movie, especially one dealing with a character whose memories are so fucked up, it was mostly, you've got Carol Danvers, who thinks she's a Kree warrior, and talking to Nick Fury for most of the movie, and they're exchanging information.
That part I found fine.
But I just think that was indicative of most of the movie. I think it was mostly characters.
There was a couple of scenes,
like
there's like 3 instances within the first 3 major scenes that the kind of egregious style of exposition happened that made me kind of shudder a bit. And I think that's what really kind of, like, that's where exposition happens. It happens at the beginning of a film or a scene, and that's kind of where I noticed it the most. And it was just, I don't know. For me, it's, again, for lack of a better word, it's lazy writing.
It's definitely a nitpick.
Yeah.
So, like, what I loved about this as well was the Marvel story. And like, can we kind of deconstruct everything that happened there? Because I thought that was really cool, and what she was trying to do with this light speed ship and how it affects Captain Marvel. And
Well, before we even delve into the details of it, it was just really well executed in that almost every element of it was a twist, which we don't, more so than I'd say most MCU films. Like the only significant twist we've had before is maybe the Mandarin, which I love. Fight about it in the comments.
I really like. I did not see this twist coming at all.
no,
So I've said on the show before that Jude Law was playing Yon-Rogg because
Sorry. I should have said, like, I thought we all knew that Jude Law was a bad guy.
no
They
way.
pretty much said that in the trailers.
I thought it was just they're just being so cagey about who he was playing, and no one was really kind of coming out and saying, "Oh, he's Marvel." So I just kind of suspected he was Yon-Rogg going in, but everything else was unpredictable because it was all this new information. Like that was really cool.
The Skrull twist was something I didn't see coming.
Fantastic.
So well executed.
So well done.
Going in thinking that Jude Law was Yon-Rogg made me highly suspicious that they were going to do some, examining the complexities of war or something, and the Skrulls wouldn't be what they seemed, which, hindsight is 2020 seems obvious now because they just don't seem that bad in the trailers or anything, or just the first part of the film, they're not like super evil or anything, they're just kind of ugly. But yeah, let's talk about that twist because that was fucking great. That's why Mendelsohn is so good in this movie that we couldn't say in the
Far out,
review.
man.
And how fucking good. Like, I know we said this in the non-spoiler, but how good is Mendelsohn in this?
Yeah.
Like, he's just, when he's...
And the humor, so much good humor.
spot on. And I mean, that's kind of been a staple of the MCU, is to just, there's some levity to these films that has to really be on point for it to be a true MCU film. And I think Mendelsohn and Larson both were just fucking spectacular on that quippy type of humor that you get in the MCU.
Yeah, no, 100%. You know what? I found it fascinating because it really comments. It's a nice sort of parallel to some of the war that's happening in the world now. Is sort of somebody, a race or a group of people being suppressed by another, and they're labeled as terrorists when they're really just fighting back to try and hold their own in a genocidal war. And there's so much of this going on, and I thought it was really cool for Marvel of all fucking people, to slip in a little something interesting there. It's not like the whole movie, the crux of the movie is built on these themes, but I liked...
It was there. Like, they came out and said terrorist and refugee, in the film, which is a little deeper than they generally go.
Yeah.
And, they already had a lot on their plate, obviously, with the SJW propaganda that this movie apparently is. So it was cool to see them just have a couple of extra elements to it.
Really cool. Really, really
and
cool.
it fits really interesting with the mythos around the Kree. I mean, Ronan and the Accusers.
I love that band.
Sorry?
I love that band.
Yeah?
Ronan and the Accusers.
I know. I love I said the Accusers because I think they mentioned this a couple of times, and I was really interested to kind of go into the relationship between the Kree and Ronan, and like they said that the Accusers are going to drop bombs. And I'm assuming that the Accusers are like a faction of Kree that they were using for military options, and that obviously kind of like to push the envelope a little bit more.
Well, that just speaks to the execution and how well it was done in this movie regarding all the twisty stuff. Because I remember hearing the Accusers, and I didn't even peg that they were talking about Ronan and his ilk, and he was known as Ronan the Accuser in that film, and it was fun to see him in a very small little role.
Yeah, I thought they could have done more with that, because we had talked previously about how it was cool that Ronan was coming back, and maybe he didn't get his just desserts, or maybe he didn't get enough time in Guardians 1.
Very thinly drawn
and
in
he's
that
so
film.
thin in this. I was like, ooh, I would have loved to have seen maybe 2 more scenes from him, and maybe some kind of little wrap-around scene where, that's what was happening.
I think that because he is essentially a fourth major theme / character, that they couldn't have put more in with him. Like,
What do you mean
got this
major theme or character?
Well, I'm just trying to think of it. Like, so you got the Skrulls and their kind of storyline or themes and all that kind of stuff. You've got the Kree, in Jude Law and that, you know, kind of little special forces group. Then you've got the humans, and then you've got Captain Marvel herself, and I feel like, and then then you've got Ronan, and I think that it just feels like a little bit too much. I mean, we talked about this for anyone that's watched our review on Fantastic Beasts 2. If you try to put too many characters and too many things into a film, then none of them really get the required time that they deserve. So I think that, look, I'm fine with them bringing back Ronan to more of a cameo.
Yeah,
and not really kind of delving into his character when there's so much that I would have rather them.
It just felt like
explore.
a missed opportunity because they could have just added bit more meat to him, and I was kind of excited about that.
What have you taken out to replace it with?
Well, you can't take anything else, so you have to add in, because it's a very, very well put together film in terms of like there's very little fat on it.
It strikes me that they might not even be done with him, because his last appearance in the movie is like, I'll be next time, Gadget. We'll be back for her.
Probably right.
And maybe we'll get a mid 2000s Captain Marvel sequel at some
point.
point.
I suspect that it'll be if there's ever a kind of a Captain Marvel 2. It'll be set around her adventures between then and Infinity War.
A lot of potential for it, because this movie is very open ended with a lot of work for her to do.
Yeah,
totally.
And the situation with the Kree seems to be fairly different between this and Guardians 1.
Well, there's obviously in that time there's been they've started waging war against what are the race called in Guardians?
You've lost me.
The Nova Corps. So they've been at war with Nova Corps, and they've in that time also drawn a peace treaty, and Ronan's gone off and done his own thing. So there's a lot to explore there in terms of kind of the political aspect. So we talked about in our non-spoiler the character arc for Captain Marvel. I wanted to get your thoughts on this, Ben, because we had a little bit of a disagreement. Shockingly, just around kind of how well that arc was executed, and maybe that might just be a difference of taste. But
yeah, I mean,
can you describe what you think the arc is? And
just a character who's been so fucked around with, she doesn't know her place or understand who she is exactly, and by the end realizes that the moment where she realizes that these people haven't been helping her at all, they've just been holding her back, is such an awesome moment of self-discovery and such a great one for a woman to have on screen like this. And the way it's just literalized by her, ripping out a thing at the back of her neck and then becoming a fucking god, I thought was just such a kick-ass moment. I really dug it.
Yeah, I'll give a positive on the arc, which is I thought the best part of her arc was after that when the guy was like, take me on one-on-one without all your extra stuff, and she just fucking blasts him, and her comment saying, I have nothing to prove to you.
Yes.
That for me was the best arc that she had, which was that I don't need you to put limits on me. I don't need you to tell me who I'm meant to be. There's a common theme right from the beginning of her saying, of Jude Law's character saying, you're too emotional, and that's going to hold you back. And I think at the end, it was kind of this relatively subtle commentary on the fact that, so what if I'm fucking emotional? Like this is who I am. I don't need to apologize for who I am. And I think that's that moment of like, I don't need to apologize for who I am or is probably the best part of that character arc.
It also, just quickly, felt like such a great comment on just the modern nature of trolls always trying to change the fucking parameters of arguments and stuff. It's like, no, fight me like this. That's how you got to prove this. It's like, no, fuck you.
Yeah, no, fuck you. I'm better than you.
I've already won this argument.
Yeah. But what I will say is that the thing that kind of that stopped me from thinking it was a really like that made me like kind of a top tier character arc was that at no point was there any kind of, again, like she was just good the entire way. And I tend to like characters that realize faults in themselves and then better themselves because of that.
This isn't exactly what you're talking about.
She kind of recognized that she had trusted too much? Like, didn't you
wrong
get
people?
Yeah, like there was an element of like.
But again, that's like
I've gone down the wrong path.
She's been betrayed.
Well, she's been manipulated.
When she looked at the Skrull, she said, "I didn't know." That's her excuse.
Well, she's seeing it from a totally different point of view that she's never seen it through.
She's been given new information, and then as soon as she's told that she's done the wrong thing, again her excuse is, "I didn't know." And in fact, the most telling thing is what Ben Mendelsohn says in that situation which is that, I am soaked in the misery of war, or whatever he says as well, which is more of an admission of guilt than what she said which is I don't know. And again, like if you look at again, and this might just be personal preference because there's different types of arcs and there's different types of discovery. For me, I like, if you look at, I'll bring this to the MCU. If you look at something when like Thor realizes he's arrogant, or Iron Man realizes that he's a mass murdering dickwad. Like it's those moments where, yes, there's external forces that force them to realize the inadequacies in themselves and they better themselves. Whereas Captain America was just really good the entire time. And I think that the same thing applies to Brie Larson. And yes, there are realizations which is the whole point of the realization, which is why I don't think you can really change it, which is that I am good enough. And I get that that's why they went with this arc. But it's just, for me, I don't know. I just prefer the arcs where someone finds internal fault and they better themselves for it.
I found it very refreshing how they went down this path. And I see your argument why you wanted more like somebody who's got a fault in their character, and then through the arc of the film, they fill that void and become the full, complete hero at the end. However, I don't think this one, with the mystery and the discovery element of it, it's just a different approach. And I really, really dug it. And I thought that, yes, she's super powerful. Yes, she's always good, and she's on the right side. But I liked how within relaying it back to refugees and races getting suppressed. Like it's very applicable to our world, and I think there's so much nuance in there, and maybe. I don't know. I'm sort of rambling a bit here, but I thought that. I just really, really enjoyed her arc, and I thought that by the end, I was kind of like fist in the air. And that for me is the criteria.
Bring it back to me. So what do you think the actual, like, explain to me the arc? Because I've asked Ben this, but like, for you, what was that arc? What was
the arc is discovering truth. Is discovering truth. And previously, prior to, like at the beginning of the film, you've got a character who's a Kree warrior who her personal truth is that she's a Kree warrior and she's going to go fuck up those Skrulls. And throughout the arc of the story, she realized, wow, I've been manipulated. I've had this whole life that I never knew about, and feel this sense of liberation at the end. And as you said, Benny, pulling off that physical device and saying, I am my own person now. I'm not being controlled by this entity, the Kree, whatever they are. And that for me is the discovery of truth and embracing of truth. I think that is the arc.
Yeah, it strikes me, in that film, like her whole portion of life where she's fighting for the Kree, like I guess it's not really like she doesn't come out and say it in the movie, but she could have done more to know about this war potentially. Like I don't know, it feels like
it's indoctrination. It's what happens to soldiers. It's what happens to anyone. You're fed information, and I'm this person. We are the good guys. Those guys are the bad guys, and we're going to go.
But I didn't get the sense that you said that there's things that she could have done. I didn't. Again, I think that the only thing that was recognized on that was her saying, "I didn't know."
Exactly, which means the lesson there. The lesson there is that knowledge and knowing is the important thing. Like, yeah. If she had,
if she said I should have known or something like, it's such a small detail, but to me it's small, but it's important. I mean, there is no
But I mean, there's things going on in Australia where with people getting in detention centers, and everyone knows about it, but nobody's doing shit about it. So I feel like it's almost it's a human nature, you know.
But this is again in this one, it's that she didn't know. So it's not that she knew and didn't do anything about it.
It's that
she's saying that she didn't know, and the presumption is if she had known, she would have never done it in the first place. Which is fine, but
I mean, we could get into didn't know versus I should have known versus, you know,
I might be nitpicking too much at this point. It's just for me, like
that line does not, for me, the difference between that line does not differentiate, doesn't impact the arc and my viewing of the film, like that one line. I think there's all this other stuff, like all the 99% outside of that line that leads me to believe this, and maybe that one line is extraneous or it's you know, doing its own other thing. Yeah. But for me, that's the arc, and I love that. Yeah.
For me, the real kind of the beautiful moments of this film are the plot arcs, not necessarily character arcs. It's the reveal of her memories. It's the things that kind of happen around, and I love that. You know, that she is this kind of steady rock through it all. And as I said before, it kind of reinforces at the end when she says, I don't need to prove anything. I'm good as I am, essentially.
Yeah, I think for this character at this time, for this story, that was absolutely the right way to take it. Yeah. Which is, you know, I'm already good enough.
It probably wouldn't have worked the way that I'm talking about.
She was just a shithead like Tony Stark.
And then kind of like, admittedly, this is the right way to do it. I'm just saying that it's a movie that I wouldn't focus on the character arc. I would focus on the things that happen around the character and her, you know, her strength through that.
Just to be clear about Tony Stark quickly, not to say you're wrong about anything, but you know, he does have his arc in the first movie where he's a shithead, and then he's like, "Oh fuck, I've been a shithead," but he's still a shithead for the rest of the series. For all of it,
but he's not a mass murdering shithead. Like, well, I mean, he sort of is. Yeah, actually.
I'm gonna kill other people now.
It's the acknowledgement of fault, and then the striving to be better. I think is what makes a difference, and it's the same thing with Thor. Like, he's.
But I don't think any of those people have been manipulated, and that's the big difference there. None of those guys have been weaponized and used as a weapon. That's exactly my point.
It's external factors.
So it's different. It's separate them. Make them different from each other.
If you're talking about
you're saying you want them to be more similar.
Not necessarily.
You're saying you want them. You say you want them to be more like Tony Stark.
No. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that as a contrast.
Because you're saying you would rather have a character who has faults at the beginning and then has an arc.
That's the kind of character I prefer in terms of a character arc. But and as I just said, I don't think they could have done that character any other way. But I don't think that if you're saying that there's a brilliant character arc in this, I don't see it. Because I don't think that this movie is about the character arc. I think it's about the circumstances around the character, and the character just being a steadfast rock throughout it.
So we got other things to talk about.
Yeah, sorry.
Going into this movie, we all have seen the trailers. We know Nick Fury has two eyes. And we know that by the end of the film, he's only going to have one.
Goddamn missed opportunity. It's a goddamn missed opportunity.
So the movie very early on lampshades this by having him get hit in the head and kind of have a really bloody eye. And someone actually asked him, like, how's your eye? And he's like, it's fine.
Yeah, and it was red when he got out of that car.
It looked bad, yeah. So
looking bad.
Connor, you already mentioned, I was certainly kind of expecting a hot tub time machine situation where he's just going to keep getting hit in the head and like someone's going to be like trying to poke him in the eye.
I mean, it's such an obvious gag to go for, but
totally.
Fuck, like.
But how often can you?
Exactly, right? And that was one of the funniest things about Hot Tub Time Machine is just that guy waiting for him to lose his arm, just being like, fucking do it. It's finally going to happen. He's going to lose his arm.
So
I think they could have really lent into that, you know, like have a piece of metal like come really close to the eye and be like, ooh, that was close type thing. Like, I think that.
But I think so many people would complain about it if they did. I don't know.
I was happy just having the one in there. You know, if it overstayed its welcome, it could have worked great. It really depends on execution.
They did it with Misty Knight in Luke Cage. Because in the comics, she has one arm.
Oh, they
did it so many times. They're like, who's going to lose an arm?
Yeah.
And everyone's kind of like, all right, just fucking do it already. Yeah. But so it finally happens. Goose the cat scratches him with a little scratch in the eye. And it's a very funny little moment.
But it's like he's scratching and he's like, oh, my eye.
Yeah, he doesn't sort of care very much. So
Come on, as if like he couldn't have mustered a little bit more.
And now, that
reaction.
fucking kill, man. And like the lines on his face, like the cat claws looked a little too perfect. There was just something about it that I loved the fact that Goose did it, but it just could have maybe his reaction would have been more severe or something.
I think the reaction should have been more severe, but I loved the follow-up on it with Coulson coming to him and he's like, is it true that like the Skrulls burned out your eyes? And he's like, I'm not saying yes or no.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so fucking great that he's let this legend build up about his
myth.
eye, and at the end of the day, it was just like a cat scratched his eye out.
Love it.
Yeah, I was just having a look at his eye when you see it in Winter Soldier. Because I wanted to compare the scar that he got in that.
Are we getting any
I mean,
connectivity there?
it's close enough, I guess.
Okay.
It's kind of scratches across the face.
Yeah.
I was assuming I wanted the movie to kind of say this because it was such a low key moment that he got infected or something. Like because it doesn't seem like his eye scratched out or anything.
That's the thing that I got confused about.
Because Ben Mendelsohn has a really funny reaction where he's like, "Oh," and I was assuming he knows something about flurkins that we don't, which is like they have poisonous scratches or something. So I was 100% sure going in that Goose was going to be an alien and was going to take his eye. So this was not a surprise at all for me, which is kind of a bummer. Because the cat's called Chewie in the comics, and it's a flurkin, it's an alien. It's
Why
a big
did they
tentacle
change the
monster.
name?
It's so weird, isn't it? Because Disney owns Chewbacca, obviously.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe they just want to keep these things separate or something.
What's the cat's name in the comic?
Chewie?
Chewie. Okay. Well, how did they come up with Goose?
Top Gun.
Oh,
Top Gun. The Goose from Top Gun. It's about
makes sense.
pilots.
All makes sense.
Yeah. So I don't know.
So wait. He was an alien. I knew how you knew he was an alien, but how did you know he was going to take his eye?
Because in Winter Soldier, Nick Fury says, the last time I trusted someone, I lost an eye. And in all the trailers, you can see him playing with the cat. He's like, oh, you cute little cat. I'm like, fuck, damn it, I ruined it for myself. So I've been sitting on that one every time we've been talking about this
how much you
movie.
loved that cat.
It was so
I was
good.
just so into it, man.
God,
Yeah,
it's
just the right
basically
amount.
you, George.
Yeah. It's a great life.
Yeah.
It's a great life. Can we just talk quickly about just the arc with Marvel quickly and deconstruct that story? Because I found that fascinating, man. I thought that was so cool. So did they even explore her coming to Earth? Like how,
coming to Earth, but certainly
but
what she was doing while
she had
she was
a
there.
lab up in orbit, creating this light speed spaceship so that.
Okay, so yeah.
Why did they want the light speed spaceship?
So they
in the
could
end?
jump to a new galaxy.
To escape the Kree.
So
they
to
couldn't
put
be
the
followed.
Skrulls on this
Yeah.
ship, and so they could escape the Kree.
So basically, her
refugees.
idea was, if I get all the Skrulls away,
there's
no more war.
And then, I just loved that, man. I thought that was so fucking cool, and how the lab was in space and got revealed. And I don't know, I just got a real kick out of it. And it reminded me, I'm trying to put my finger on what it reminded me of. Some sci-fi novel or some 90s sci-fi novel that I've read. Like the Ark or something with a ship that's called the Ark or something. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm going to sit on that, but it was really, really cool.
And we get the reveal, the whole movie they're talking about like faster than light speed travel. And like we haven't really seen that in the MCU. And then we get the reveal, of course, it's the Tesseract, which is capable of transporting people instantly across the universe. I'm like, fuck, that makes so much sense. That really stitches together. It's a nice little stitch.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Captain Marvel has gotten her powers from an Infinity Stone, which we already knew she was going to be, the biggest badass in the universe in this. So it's just cool to really get a good origin for that. And
So
really
she's
get a
basically
sense of it.
absorbed the power of the Tesseract.
Which doesn't really translate into her abilities, but whatever. The Infinity Stones have always been so completely nebulous as to what they
They're
used to
just power stones.
do.
That's all they are.
They're
really.
very powerful.
And that's all the Tesseract is like. How many things is the Tesseract charged, essentially?
Yeah, well, it's cool because we never found out how S.H.I.E.L.D. got it before the Avengers. So it was kind of cool to just get another little tie-in there.
Here's another thing that is kind of relevant, but also not relevant to this specifically. There's a comment in the first Avengers about how the same energy signal that is in Loki's staff is also in the Tesseract. But they're two different Infinity Stones. The fuck?
Let's not suck it into the plot holes in the Avengers, because that was never intended to be the case, where they later retconned it into being. But yeah, that was like such a just put the staff in the thing and then all the enemies will die. That's not great. But yeah, I think retroactively it makes more sense. I don't know, just the Infinity Stones all being able to interact with each other in some way.
Yeah.
How many times have we seen the Tesseract now? How many movies? It must be about 8.
Captain America, Thor, with the big introductions, Avengers
1.
Yeah.
This.
Ragnarok, I guess. Infinity War.
Yeah, I mean,
Thor 2,
man. That's the most. That's the most seen Infinity Stone. It must be.
Yeah,
easily.
Yeah.
Easily.
It's not the ether.
Ah, well, we can't all be. Can't all be. Just one more thing. This might sound really dumb, but I just need to ask. Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel. Captain. How?
Oh, you're right. That did sound dumb.
How? Okay, so she's not referenced as Captain Marvel in this at all. And will she ever get referenced directly in the movie? I'm going to say no, probably.
I think they'll lean into it. I think maybe the amount of time that's passed between this film and Endgame, maybe she'll just have that title by then. That could be an easy way to just be like, yeah, I'm Captain Marvel.
But
I
is
would
she
love
Captain
it
Marvel?
if No.
Marvel and Marvel are different characters.
So who is Marvel in this?
So she's named herself after the band, I guess, that Nick Fury.
Yeah, see, that's what I didn't
end.
get, and I think they could have done something there or something. It's not a big deal. I'm not gonna.
But they could have explained the name.
Yeah.
So I would absolutely love it if this has just occurred to me. If when she gets there in Endgame and she meets Steve Rogers, Steve goes, Captain America, and she goes, Captain Marvel.
yeah. They could do something like that.
Captain.
Okay, I'm glad I've cleared that up.
Yeah,
it's stressing me out.
I don't think they're going to address it directly. But I think that the name, Marvel, is so important to them. I think they will include it.
Yeah.
To some extent.
At some point, yeah.
Fun Stan Lee cameo.
Love
Second
that.
posthumous one. He's reading his script for Mallrats, was it?
Yeah.
So this is
crazy.
This is the only one that he's played Stan Lee in, right?
In the film.
Yeah. Like
yeah.
he was playing himself.
Possibly in when he's talking to the Watchers. Is he Stan Lee?
He's he's called Watcher Informant in the credits.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that's fun. And then of course the opening Marvel
that was
logo.
great.
That was so good.
It's all
man.
Stan Lee's.
That was such a cheer.
Very sweet. Yeah.
And everyone in the crowd was so stoked on that.
Yeah.
I just one more thing as well is that the camaraderie that we got between like Samuel L. Jackson, Ben Mendelsohn, Brie Larson. You also got Sheena Lynch. Sorry, fuck, I really fucked that up. They had some really fun moments as an ensemble. They riffed off each other. There were some funny moments. I really got a kick out of that.
Ben Mendelsohn talking about his shape-shifting
So good.
is fucking brilliant. He's like, dare I say, a talent. And then them betting to or trying to convince him to shapeshift into different things. His reaction on that is just fucking priceless.
The effect of the changing was much more visceral than we saw in the trailers. It was gross, man. They were like peeling apart and turning
I
into
love
other
that
things.
effect. Yeah, it was very cool.
So can I give one more negative to get my contrarian nitpicking ass out of here?
Only if it directly addresses something we've already said is a positive.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the criteria.
I don't think you mentioned it. So what did you think of the ending, Ben? Just say good so I can be a contrarian.
Amazing.
And say that. All right, excellent. Well, sort of.
Okay, fine.
No, I didn't like the tone of the ending. I didn't mind the plot mechanics.
What are we talking about specifically?
So pretty much from when she leaves the house to when they blast off into the end, felt like the end of a weird Disney film. Like it's just the score and the like.
I feel like Star Trek.
I remember watching it and
a few Star Trek-y moments.
Feeling very like viscerally feeling, oh, this is not a Marvel movie. Like this part does not feel like a Marvel movie at all. And that really weirded me out. Was the end like it was just this kind of very like I don't even know how to say it. Like
it felt very much like To Infinity and Beyond, and we're off on another adventure.
And like, oh, give the big hug to the and I'll be up there in the stars and like that kind of shit. And I was like, oh, what are you doing? Like, fuck.
Didn't have a problem with that at all.
I did. it like the tone of it was just too like
I thought they really
happy-go-lucky.
The pacing of this film was on point for me, so I don't think
which is why that type of ending just made it feel so it was jolting.
like it didn't do a mad drawn out like looking out on the veranda and being like, we did it, man.
But it did.
You know?
It did do that. Like they were at dinner and then they were talking about how they had to go and they had this big hugging scene.
But it
and then
didn't,
she
as
go
I said, it
flies
didn't
off into the
overstay
air.
its welcome. It didn't have a big.
I think it did.
I don't think so.
I think there's so many better ways that they could have done that. Like the whole inspirational, happy-go-lucky music. Maybe it was just the score that did it for me.
I thought that
next time you watch it, have a think about how that scene feels.
I thought that
You're
the
gonna definitely
film
overthink it.
kind of like by the time she had kind of fucked up all the Kree warships, I was kind of like, okay, I'm waiting for the post-credit scene. You know, I was just kind of we're going through the motions now to wrap up this movie, but we'd kind of seen everything that we needed to see, and that's where I was for that, and none of that bothered me.
Yeah. Once she destroyed that Kree warship, I was like, oh, she's like so powerful that there's absolutely nothing. There's nothing for her to really do now. Like, what's going to be a challenge? And when Jude Law was like, fight me, I was like, I mean, she's just destroyed an entire ship. Like, there's no way that this fight is going to be entertaining. So, I mean, just for logistically, she had to like whack him.
I loved the full realization of her power. I thought that was so cool.
That was
Such a fist pump moment.
Just really, so many people have a big problem with, overpowered characters. As a lifelong Dragon Ball Z fan, I don't know the definition of overpowered. So I love seeing her just fly around, Super Saiyan, blowing everything up. I thought that was so cool. And I that's the moment that really left me with like, I can't wait to see more of her in the next.
Yeah, and the way they did her
hour.
hair as well.
Very
That was
cool.
fucking cool.
Very cool. Your
Very
hair.
fucking cool, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess we can move on to the post-credit scene, the first one.
Yeah, let's do it.
Which feels very much like the
Second half.
Ant-Man post-credit scene, which was just a scene from Civil War. It was just, I think this is just going to be a scene taken
do you think
from.
so?
Yeah, I can't see this as being something completely
Yeah,
separate.
you're probably right.
They've done
I didn't
this a
even
couple
think
of
about
times.
that.
Yeah. When it started and I saw, Steve there, I'm like minorly disappointed. Like, I think this is just a scene from Endgame, but it's still very cool to see. And fun to see it tie so directly into that. And I love the way she just shows up at the end, like, sup. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're playing with the pager, and then she kind of turns up, and that's that. It's sort of not a massive like game changer of an end credit scene.
I don't know how they're going to make her fit in with the Avengers.
Feels like that's going to be a massive turning point in the film. When you just see all these really sad, downtrodden, casually
but there's
dressed
something, I was really
Avengers.
excited about seeing the down and out characters that couldn't possibly win, kind of try and win through some strategy. It almost seems like once they have Captain Marvel, what the fuck can't she do?
There'll be
Create life.
Like the Russos will do something great with it. I have no doubt.
Yeah.
But, you're right. It's like I can't think of it.
That's the
off the
thing. It
top of
looks
my
like an impossible task.
Yeah.
But with the Russos,
But
it just
so
makes me
was
excited
Infinity
to
War
see
and-
what they do.
Yeah, it's a fair call.
And then we had another little post-credit scene.
There's a cat
Just
hawking
one
up
of the fun ones. Marvel has like a serious one and a fun one.
One of the things that did bother me is that how did the Tesseract not burn through the table?
What?
Don't people
I don't know.
hold
Like,
it?
I'm very confused as to.
That's when it's
people don't hold it. No.
That's when it was used.
Okay, so
like
it has to be
was
being
like
used.
being activated when the Red Skull dropped it and it went through the ship.
Yeah. Because that now, the more I think about it, then that never made sense. Because I was like, when it was in the box, what was that box made out of in that fucking oak tree thing?
Yeah. It was just because it was like full,
Not
at full
activated.
power. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. I'm on board.
All right, guys. Any wrap-up thoughts? How's everyone feeling for Endgame?
Wrap up thoughts. I'm just trying to think if there's anything that we missed.
We talked about Jude Law, yeah?
We talked about it in a non-spoiler. In this one, I really liked. He was a good kind of antithesis to Captain Marvel.
I don't think we've talked about Gemma Chan as well from Crazy Rich
Crazy Rich
Asians.
Asians, Minerva.
I thought she was cool. Like nothing really meaty for her to delve
what
into.
was,
she was the blue.
Minerva.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's just a side character.
I thought it was just cool, and I'm kind of rooting for that actor. So
I like their little team, and I like that they became like the the henchmen. At the
I want to
end,
know
the
who that
bad guys.
Norwegian guy is. because I feel like I recognize him from something.
Big beardy guy.
Yeah. Also, but we didn't get to figure out what happened to Old Mate. That's a robot.
Honsu.
Yeah.
Yeah. She didn't tear out the back of his head or anything.
Well, I was expecting that. I was like, there's a scene where he's there when they're talking to Ronan, and I thought at that moment that he was going to betray them and call in Ronan, and that's how you'd get the association between those two. But there was nothing, so it does leave even more room for something in between that and Guardians.
Yeah, this movie had one too many connective fibers for me, so I'm glad they left that one out, to be honest.
Yeah,
they could have left him out of this. Even though he
Oh,
had
no,
a
no,
really
no, no,
fun
no.
line.
I liked him being
really
there.
fun line.
I liked that he was there. It made sense that he was
I
there.
would have liked to have seen something like him scuttling off or something. I don't know. But it's not a deal clincher for me. Endgame. Final little teaser for Endgame. Any popping off?
Like I said,
ideas
I
for
just
this?
don't know how they're going to incorporate Captain Marvel. She seems so highly powered at this point, and that made it. I loved it at the end of that film, but when you're going into this film now with that level of power, I don't know. Like, how does that work?
Same with Thor, though. I mean, he was a Thanos killer by the end of that movie. Didn't work out for him. So, like, even without Captain Marvel, we'd still have that problem going into this.
Yeah, I've never seen Thor take out an entire battleship like that. So,
Guys,
he did at the end of Infinity War. He took out several.
oh, he did, didn't he? You're right. Yeah. Oh well, fuck me then.
Yeah.
We all done.
We agree.
It's a miracle, people. Well, there we have it, guys. That's our Captain Marvel spoiler review. Please hit us up with some questions and thoughts and everything else in the comments, because we'll probably, if there's enough volume there, we'll do a follow-up episode where we can address them and just keep the dialogue going.
If you have some serious complaints about this film that we don't, let us know.
Yeah. Did we miss anything? Did we get it wrong? Are we a
Or
bunch
things
of
that we haven't
idiots?
thought of that was really good as well.
Hit us up in the comments, guys, on YouTube. That would be freaking awesome. We'll be back next week, and for Endgame in a month, 2 months,
God,
6
crazy.
weeks.
Month and a
I
half.
can't do maths.
Like it's
not far.
4 or 5 weeks.
Not far.
It's fucking around the corner. What is it?
Crazy.
18th of.
It's
April?
fucking around the corner.
Cheeky end game.
Right around that corner. Just got to get
Goddamn
ready for the big day.
Thanos. All right. We'll see you next week, Connor.
Bye.
See you next week, Benny.
Bye, boys. Bye, bro.